Crystal Morton, Associate Professor of Math Education and Director of Girls STEM Institute.
I'm Jomo Associate Professor of Science Education. Early on, we often had undergraduate students who would reach out to us or who would somehow find themselves in our space and under our mentorship for one reason or another. And we have tried different structures, I would say, to formalize the mentorship. It doesn't have to be formal, but we found that some things help if they were formal, because many times students were dealing with the same types of issues.
Okay, so Girls STEM Institute is an informal STEM program. We have a summer intensive that's usually about 4 weeks face-to-face and 6 weeks now that we're in a virtual space. And we also have year-round programming, either 1 or 2 Saturdays a month. And what we do in this space is we want to provide our scholars an opportunity to engage in STEM in a way that connects to their lived experiences. And the program, we partner with many community partners. We partner with other units on campus. And for the block grant recipients, what they focused on was helping to develop stronger partnerships. They were able to leverage their own connections in the community to get support for Girls STEM Institute. They also were tasked with supporting the research, so data collection and data analysis, conducting, during the summer, they would come in and do interviews, and for some of the block grant recipients, they were just analyzing data that was already existing. They had an opportunity to present findings from the work of Girls STEM at local and national conferences, and also have an opportunity to write about those findings in publications. So in addition to having more traditional scholarship with presentations and papers, we've also been able to build community partnerships and sustain those over time.
So the way that ES Squared, the STEM Learning Lab, contributes to the Block Grant program is that it provides a formal structure, a formal space in which we can identify certain research skills that we want students to be sure to adopt. So we learn to do research by doing research. So in one sense, we kind of jump into it. But in order to make our learning more efficient, there are some formalized things that we have to learn. And the lab structure helps us to master those formalized structures.
Block grant recipients, they led their research. They had a research team as well within the lab. So they had an undergraduate research assistant that worked with them, but they were their supervisor. So they had the opportunity to gain that leadership experiences as well.
Our block grant recipients come to us with assets. So it's not that they haven't done meaningful work or aren't doing meaningful work. They're doing very meaningful work in the community. And they're assets not only to others in the lab or our research group, but for the School of Education and the university as a whole. And I think in both instances, the work we were able to do with them, the relationships we were able to build with them through the block grant has allowed us to extend those relationships and then to draw from the assets that they're able to provide, not just for us as individual faculty, but also for the School of Education and the university.
What has been a benefit, I think, and parents have talked about this, is just watching their child develop and become more confident in STEM, but not just STEM, but just confident in general. It's been very powerful for me to sit in the spaces where we have parents and the scholars learning together. And when they talk about issues of systemic racism, having, powerful to see the parents and caregivers talking about their experiences, doing how they were brought up, what they experienced in terms of racism, and being able to process and talk through that with their child beside them, being able to say, we had a recent session where a parent was speaking to someone from the state, and he was able to talk about things that he was exposed to through Girls STEM Institute that opened his eyes to a lot of things that he now questions, and having those questions to ask educators when his daughter is being underserved. And so being able to come alongside parents, and parents are already advocating. So Girls STEM Institute doesn't come in and help them become advocates. We come in and come alongside and give them access to resources that they may not have had access to before. We also learn a lot from our parents as well. So I think in terms of the community is the advocacy piece for both the parents, caregivers, as well as the scholars. and helping them both grow in terms of understanding how they can use STEM in their everyday lives.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about the Block Grant um, program and the way that our recipients' experiences were structured is that there is an immediate community impact, much of which Dr. Morton alluded to. So in the lab, the projects that students take on usually are already community engaged projects. So Dr. Morton's project was Girls STEM Institute, and one other project that we had um, students working on was a study of the science of Black hair.
Mhm.
Those both really have, in and of themselves, an immediate community need. But I don't want us to lose sight of a long-term community impact that the project has. And so if in our time with our graduate students, we're able to position them to be more competitive in the marketplace, then we're really opening up options for them. And so I know as a student who has actually matriculated through two institutions, it's hard to find like-minded people in faculty ranks and in administrator ranks who can serve as advocates for you. And this is something that we have very explicit conversations with about not only our graduate students, but also our undergraduate students, and help them to be forward thinking about what their careers will look like, and then their responsibility to serve as advocates for others coming behind them. Um, so things like the conference presentations and the publications, our Block Grant recipients could have gone through their first year of graduate school and not done any of that and still went on to their second year. But having done it and having gone on to their second year with that insight, they're much better positioned to be competitive in the marketplace when they graduate and to eventually be in positions where they serve as effective advocates for students who are coming behind them.
It was beneficial having Block Grant. We were thankful to be able to have two of them. It allowed me an opportunity to have some to mentor and serve in a mentor role as a faculty member. I do it often with undergraduate students, but this gave me an opportunity to really build some strong connections with our PhD students. So I appreciated that opportunity.